Good afternoon. I'm Andy Farrell with AWS. Thank you for attending today's session. This is PEX102, Accelerate IoT Innovation with Reynolds Consumer Products and DXC Technology. Thank you for attending today's session. We have some exciting information to share with you today. Joining me in this session are John Pulford from Reynolds Consumer Products and Russell Duggan-Reese from DXC. In this session, you're going to learn about how AWS and DXC are collaborating with Reynolds Consumer Products to innovate in lowering environmental impact through a joint funded offering called Spark. We'll discuss some CPG industry issues and how the GSIS ISV program is supporting innovation with emerging technology solutions for these companies. You'll then hear from John and Russell about Reynolds, their strategic focus for these types of projects, and how the current Spark project is being implemented at their organization. Let's start today's session with a question. 18 trillion. Does anyone here have a guess as to what that number represents? How about a hint? It has to do with CPG products. Guesses? That's the total revenue from CPG industry products that are going to be purchased by consumers this year. This includes more than 2.5 million brands in the market, which is more than 1 trillion products purchased total. Now, have you ever thought about how much planning, organization, and efficiency contributes to manufacturing, distributing, and selling more than 1 trillion items from more than 2.5 million brands in the world each year? Well, some of you probably have if you work in the CPG industry for your organization. But for the vast majority of consumers, this is something that just occurs automatically to get a product to a grocery shelf. But these products don't just spontaneously appear on the shelf when a consumer requires them, although some may think that Amazon's one-hour delivery service is getting pretty close to that. No, in fact, there's an enormous amount of optimization in the CPG industry to get these products manufactured and distributed to both retail channels and consumers. And much of that optimization comes from expertise at these CPG organizations that have been leading the market with innovation. Soon, you're going to hear how Reynolds Consumer Products and DXC are utilizing Spark to accelerate innovation and optimize processes with IoT emerging technology in order to minimize their environmental impact. But first, I'd like to have you consider your environmental impact from an individual standpoint. Each and every person attending this session is a consumer. And when most consumers think of environmental impact, they consider, of course, transportation. And of course, you all had to take trains, planes, automobiles, or other transportation to come attend this conference, perhaps even wait 2 hours at the Venetian for a taxi last night. But let's think more directly at some additional impact when discussing CPG products. Let's utilize breakfast this morning as an example. Perhaps you had coffee, maybe an orange juice, some toast, maybe a bowl of cereal with some milk, maybe potato chips and a soft drink instead. All of these items got here by going through an entire CPG industry process of manufacturing and then distribution. Processes which directly have an environmental impact with water, gas, electricity, and pollution. But how much could that possibly be, though? Well, there's approximately 45,000 attendees at this conference, and maybe 80,000 conferences each year, 3 or 4 days each conference. That's 360 million conference attendees. Conferences, which would then have 1.4 billion breakfasts, or 7 billion breakfast items, just for conference attendees alone. Now just think if you had a solution that could lower the environmental impact for those items by as much as 20%, what kind of impact that can start to have. And then you go back to our 18 trillion number at the beginning of the session and think this really can make a strategic difference for organizations, consumers, and the environment. Now, many of these CPG organizations have already been optimizing these processes for years, with some of the largest CPG companies having distributed products since they were utilizing horses for transportation. They've continued to lead the market by quality of products, market awareness, and innovating and optimizing throughout their manufacturing distribution channels. So, what more could they possibly learn that they haven't already done in their operations? Haven't they already reached a level of efficient optimization? What more could they learn? Well, in fact, there is much more to learn. And that is by utilizing sensors, devices, computers, and cameras throughout these processes to gather information. Information which, when combined with emerging IoT platforms and data analysis, provides dynamic visibility into more than 70 terabytes of information per manufacturing facility or distribution center, which was previously not known. Information which allows them to make better informed decisions in the areas of production efficiency, quality control, smart devices reporting, and environmental impact. These environmental impact solutions specifically allow CPG organizations to more effectively plan and launch environmental initiatives now that they have access to information about these components, allowing them to not only help the environment by doing so, but become a company that more consumers recognize as being more environmentally responsible. Did you know that 73% of consumers are willing to change their purchasing habits to help improve the environment? So, are these CPG companies launching such initiatives? Well, yes, they are. And the market leaders, such as Reynolds, are leading the way with new innovation, learning with IoT implementations, gathering access to more information, and optimizing further to allow them to plan even more such initiatives. And AWS is helping them do just that through a program called GSIS-ISV, which provides funding and processes to support these solutions. This program allows AWS and partner organizations, such as DXC, to meet these objectives of launching solutions into specific industries more effectively. The GSIS-ISV program provides value to both partners and customers by aligning key partner-developed solutions with industry sales, allowing for more traction and awareness in the market. Additionally, AWS supports offering development to ensure solutions meet the requirements for AWS services. Then, customers are accelerating their deployment of these solutions by working with AWS and DXC to address industry-specific issues with flexible, secure, and innovative platforms, increasing both market share and revenue for those customers. AWS works with consulting partner companies such as DXC to identify new industry-specific offerings with emerging technology and then launch them directly into the market. This program not only funds some of the offering development, but ensures that some customer funding is included to allow customers to pilot and launch these initiatives much sooner than if they had to plan to allocate more substantial investment in developing these products directly. For CPG organizations, the offering we have launched in the market for IoT with CPG is called Spark, and it helps these companies accelerate innovation in the areas we've mentioned: production efficiency, quality control, smart devices, and environmental impact. Now, you're going to hear from John with Reynolds to tell you more about their company, their strategic focus, and their plans for both their current Spark environmental project and additional initiatives. John?
Thank you. Thanks, Andy. And thanks to all of you for spending a little time with us today to hear how Reynolds Consumer Products is leveraging solutions by DXC running on AWS to become more efficient in our operations and to be mindful about the impact that our manufacturing can have on the environment. But before we get started, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about our company. Reynolds Consumer Products is a publicly traded consumer products company that's present in over 96% of the households in the United States. The products that we play in are products for cooking, products for storage, products for waste products, and also in tableware. And you might know some of the brands that we have on the screen, Hefty products, and also the Reynolds line of products. RCP holds the number 1 and number 2 position in most of the categories that we play in. And we've gotten to that position by making sure that we come out with consistently new innovative products in these spaces. Now at Reynolds Consumer Products, our mission is to simplify daily life for what matters most. Let me break that down for you for a second. Simplify daily life. Well, all of our products are meant to give you the gift of time back. Time in the home. They're designed to give people aid in cleaning and cooking. Also, for what matters most, well, this may be different for every person. It could be spending more time with family and friends. It could be pursuing a new hobby. It could be relaxing or resting after a very long AWS conference in Las Vegas. We make that same promise, not only to our consumers, to our retail customers, and to ourselves internally, to simplify things, simplify daily life for what matters most. In my role as Director of Manufacturing Technology at RCP, I'm also simplifying daily life for what matters most, in my case, the manufacturing teams. I strive to make processes more efficient for our manufacturing associates. I strive to improve product quality for our consumers. And I work to ensure that we're operating in ways that reduce our environmental impact. Leveraging the Internet of Things is one of the ways that we can simplify our processes. And this gives us the opportunity to prioritize what's most important for our business. Now, as Andy discussed earlier, we are all considering the impacts that we can have and the choices that we can make to be more environmentally conscious in our everyday lives. RCP is committed to providing products that simplify daily life while reducing environmental impact. We want to offer products and packaging that helps consumers make a positive impact with their buying and recycling habits. Here are just a few examples of the products that we have that are either 100% compostable or made from recycled materials. Now, my role in the company is to drive innovation in the manufacturing technology space from an IT perspective. I lead what we call our digital manufacturing group, managing the various software packages that support manufacturing and also coming up with new solutions to leverage data from our equipment to improve our processes. I included a quote here that I always like to keep top of mind when I'm speaking with our manufacturing groups, and I think you might find it helpful too if you're in manufacturing. The goal is not to become a digital company. Instead, for industrial companies to capitalize on digital technologies to defend and advance their competitive advantage. Now, I have to be honest. I love digital technology and all these cool, cutting-edge things as much as the next person. But it's not about just implementing technology for the sake of doing it. It's about implementing technology that will add value to your organization. To help you understand a little bit about how IoT can help your company, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the group that about the work that my group does at Reynolds Consumer Products and how we add value to our company. What I have on the screen are some of the key areas that Intelligent Factory normally focuses on, at least at our company. And to be honest, that first column is probably where most of our time is spent. We provide better visibility on how our manufacturing equipment is operating. We empower operators and management to make better decisions and choices using data from the equipment. And we're focused on improving equipment uptime and reliability. Some examples of solutions that we've brought to the teams: building real-time dashboards of information about the equipment, enabling trending of operating conditions, or automating collection of downtime with information coming directly from the machines, so the machines tell us the reason that it was down. All of these things help us to have the best understanding of where our largest opportunities are. All of these things can lead you to become more efficient in your manufacturing operations by unlocking lost capacity due to downtime, due to product waste. These are all common drill sites for anybody doing IoT in the manufacturing space. But I've got three other buckets on the screen here. We're starting to get more traction and more demand from the business for assistance and solutions that deal with other areas too. Issues like predicting product quality based on the chemistry of the products that we're making, and using vision analytics to be able to spot defects in the products as they're being made. And I would like to also say those final two things are what we're kind of here to talk about today. We are starting to get more traction about environmental concerns, like reducing emissions or reduction of energy usage. Now, with our Intelligent Factory program, many of the solutions that we've come up with in the past, frankly, they were based on non-cloud technology, IoT platforms that we had that were on-prem, and they required us to largely build our own solutions. There were building blocks in the platforms, and we would have to sort of decide how to put those things together. Our journey for Intelligent Factory and the digital manufacturing team really started before a lot of accelerators were widely available. Maybe the same is true for some of you. Now, to be honest, it felt a lot like a giant box of Legos with no instruction manual telling you how to make that cool Harry Potter Hogwarts castle. Does anybody have that feeling? I see some nods. Well, if you have, maybe these things will resonate with you, and if you haven't and you're considering building some custom solutions, let me tell you about some of the things you might expect. First, when you're building it yourself, projects take longer to develop. As we were starting out, if we had a blank slate, it always took a lot longer. It would be great to have a solution that we could just make a few tweaks. Projects could stretch to months instead of just weeks, as we were talking about a little bit earlier. The solutions that we came up with became highly customized, and it was more challenging to fast adapt them from one part of our business to another. You know, the benefit of being able to build it custom is that you can tailor it to exactly what the business wants and exactly what the business says that they need. And we, at times, have done that. Much to our dismay, we found that making aluminum foil isn't quite the same as making waste bags. And so the solutions take a lot to be able to fast adapt them from one part of the business to another. Sometimes it's not even worth it to try to take that solution across. And so you end up making two solutions. If your business has very different parts, you might find that trying to not go to such a custom route may be a good thing. Now, next, because each solution was built internally, it was more challenging to support these solutions on an ongoing basis. Has anybody here built a custom solution before? Has anybody built several custom solutions for their business in a manufacturing environment? Well, I'm here to tell you, if you hear that phone ring, are you really worried that that's someone calling asking, how is that supposed to work for something that you built a few years back? That's a scary thought, and that happens all the time when you're building these custom solutions. So, beware of that as well. In general, we think that these solutions also had a longer proof to value. Now, why is that? Well, it takes longer to develop these solutions. And because there was no clear precedent for what we were building, it was new every time. Every time we would develop a solution, we had some ideas of what it would be, and the business would give us some suggestions. But at the end of the day, we had to kind of see what happened when we developed it. Our main competency as a company is making quality products, quality Reynolds wrap, not building software. Finally, we believe that by building ourselves, in many cases, we had a higher total cost of ownership for our solutions. With our journey into energy, however, we decided we wanted to try something different. We were very interested to find a solution that put the pieces together for us instead of building it ourselves. This might be the right option for you too. So I'd encourage you to look into the program that Andy was talking about with partners like DXC. We were hoping to eliminate some of the challenges that I just explained to you that we were having with building custom solutions. This is where Spark came in. Now let me tell you a little bit about our business situation to frame it up for you. We make Reynolds aluminum wrap. We make lots of Reynolds aluminum wrap. We've been making it for 75 years. Now, every day, our factories are producing 35,000-pound coils of aluminum. Huge. These coils are then rolled in mills to make it thinner and thinner and thinner until finally it's at the gauge that you need so that you can buy your Reynolds wrap. One of the steps in that production process to make Reynolds wrap is to take these coils and to put them into giant furnaces. And that process starts to soften up the metal. It's called annealing. And with the annealing process, we put these coils in for up to 20 hours at a time at over 900 degrees in furnaces that are all powered by natural gas. As you might expect, the cost to do this is staggering. With the cost rise in energy prices, even more staggering. So, what was our business challenge? Well, we need to minimize the amount of natural gas that's used in that process. This is a benefit not only to the cost of manufacturing, but also to the environmental impact that we can have. We wanted help in understanding the energy utilization across the various furnaces based on the amount of production that was being made, and we wanted to be able to identify the impacts that the various environmental initiatives that we were doing were having on the related furnaces. Now, Spark looks like a great tool to be able to give us these capabilities with minimal build from the RCP side, which was the huge allure for us. I'd like to turn it over to Russell from DXC to explain a little bit about how the Spark platform works. Russell?
Okay, so Spark is not Apache Spark. Spark is the name of a platform and service that DXC has developed for manufacturing companies to accelerate their use of digital solutions. Now, I'm going to use the analogy of a restaurant. DXC have effectively built an entire kitchen to provide meals, and in the case of meals, they're an accelerator, and in the case of Reynolds, they're using the environmental accelerator. And that platform, entirely built on AWS, allows us to rapidly get these accelerators out to market into our customers. And what the environmental accelerator is doing for Reynolds is it's effectively giving them the ability to have information faster so they can make better decisions and faster decisions on how to change their machine parameters and the conditions, and also how to change processes. And that will then allow them to optimize the use of gas through the process that John had explained. Now, in effect, what we're doing is, from an IoT perspective, we are installing IoT sensors, smart sensors, that are detecting how much gas is being used. We're ingesting that into this Spark platform. We're analyzing it, and we're visualizing it for the operators and management within the factory and giving them reports. And the amalgamation, the combination of all that data is giving them that rich insight that they don't have today in order to make those changes. So, as I mentioned before, these accelerators, these mills, we are providing everything on AWS, as I said before, and what's happening is that we've done our homework. We've done a year's worth of design work to bring 30 serverless services across AWS platform together and knitted them all together. I'll explain which services they are in a minute. In order to rapidly provide these solutions, these accelerators, to our customers, we have over 200 lines of code, and that code is taking all of those 30 serverless services and knitting them all together. And I'll give you an example with the Lambda functions, the glue scripts, the Athena queries. They've already been written. And as John said before, with regards to the customization, we are able to customize that mill for the customer within the parameters of that accelerator. So our homework has been done, and we understand, okay, so this mill, they're going to want the particular components of that in a particular way, and we're able to change. And that's the power of the AWS platform, is that we can provide that flexibility when they want a slightly different take on that accelerator. So one of the points as well I'd like to make is the fact that, as you can imagine, these accelerators don't just do a point solution, they provide the basis of doing a lot more. So within Reynolds' case, giving them the example of where you need to focus your attention to provide condition of the machine changes and process changes, but that also means that when you ingest cost into that and production schedule, you're able to see, I made this product in this way and it cost me this much. And that really is the power of the AWS platform in the ability to combine all that data, store that data, analyze that data. So the platform itself, as I said, is over 30 different serverless services. We don't use EC2, we don't use VPC, and the benefit here is that it's already secure. We can configure each of these services. We use the edge services, Greengrass, for example. We use cloud services such as IoT Core to bring the data in. We use Sitewise as a historian. And we even use Amplify Suite to provide web interfaces. So John's department and the operators on the factory floor, they're actually seeing a web interface that's actually provided and built on AWS. So when we started doing this, we were amazed how much scale the AWS platform has to do everything traditionally. We would have used many, many pieces of software to bring together to provide these solutions. So, again, the leveraging of Spark solved many of the custom-based solution problems, and we've done a lot of work to provide a mill that is out of the box for them, and the challenges that John had mentioned earlier, we've really focused on how can we overcome these challenges and how can we allow customers to use these technologies without all of the risk, without the huge entry costs that are traditional with these types of solutions. And I'm going to ask John to come back and say, well, Spark was great, but there are still challenges that we've come up against within the project. And we're going to share some of these now with you. Over to you, John. Thank you.
So you're saying we're going to peel back the onion for them?
That's it.
Okay. So one of the first things that we found, and I think you'll find in any of your projects, is regardless of using a Spark accelerator, you've got to have good business resource availability. Now, especially doing the Spark program, where it's a very accelerated thing, is, as we heard before, you could stand things up in a matter of weeks if your business can go that fast. Now, when you run a very lean business, just having people in the business to be able to answer, what do they need? What are the requirements? Be able to just answer questions about where information can come from, to be able to test. you've got to have those resources available. So I would encourage you to think about that as you do your project planning. You have to make sure your business resources are available. Secondly, if you have highly utilized production assets, you need to consider this in your timeline. Now, this was probably the biggest problem, I think, in our project. We were all gung-ho to get started on this effort, and then we explained to Russell and the team, our furnaces do not go down. They run continuously. And as we said before, we have to install meter equipment on the furnaces so that we can actually see furnace by furnace what's happening. And so you have to consider, if you have these highly utilized manufacturing lines, that has to go into your timeline. So that's definitely a concern for you as well. Next, complications of machine-level data. Well, aside from just the downtime piece, if you have machine-level data, we're talking about information that's coming off of manufacturing PLCs, and that information usually comes through a historian. You have to find a way to bring it into Spark. Luckily, the DXC team knows how to do those sorts of things. But the people that are in the factories that may have to program some things or install some things, they're very hard to get as well. And so you have to consider who are the people that are going to be needed and what information is going to be necessary so that you can bring all that information together and bring it to Spark.
And John, the AWS platform has many ways of integrating with these sorts of systems, ERP systems, MES systems, SCADA systems. And although on paper it sounds simple, when you get to do it and you're looking at a tag that's deep in a database within the MES systems, that's hard because we don't own the MES systems. The customer does. We sometimes manage them. But getting that tag out, getting it out in the right order, in the right time, yeah, this was one of the challenges we had.
So next, closely related, is the fact that you have multiple sources of data. Now, we hear time and time again about data lakes and putting all this information together, and we also hear the challenges of ETL. How do you actually merge that information together? When you have this time series data, very granular, it's not about which product you're running or anything else. It's just, during this time, here's how the equipment was operating. And then you have SAP data about cost, production schedules, master data, and everything else. It's oftentimes order-based. How do you link that information together? That's, again, one of the things that we got a lot of help from DXC on. That was one of the pieces. But that's one of the things for you to be on the lookout for as well in your projects. How do you bring together the information from multiple sources and be able to link it, especially when you're talking about information that may be managed by a group at corporate, in the case of SAP, and from a manufacturing standpoint, oftentimes engineers at a manufacturing site.
And John, the way that we've aimed to overcome that particular challenge is we built schemas. So in order to provide the dashboards that we need, or you need, we know what data is needed. Not necessarily within all the databases that you have, but that schema that we've built enables us to accelerate the time to get those in and know how we then need to transfer that into the database that we have that we then use the data to analyze.
That's right. And last but not least, certainly, system connectivity and security. Now, this was one of our first big IoT implementations that we did in the cloud. Most of all the other things we did, we were focused on on-prem solutions. But our security team wanted to be very, very careful about what data would be transferred and how extractors would be connected. I think it was very helpful that, as Russell has mentioned, it was something that they had well thought out, and they were able to put the fears of our security team to rest with the way that everything was designed. But that's something that you need to consider as well. Make sure that when you're designing your solutions, that you're trying to put security in to start with. And in hindsight, what we ended up doing was we had built some pipelines for another project. We were able to simply use some of those same pipelines. It aided in our setup of the system connectivity by making it much faster to implement. And in the end, it was much simpler to support. So keep your design as simple as you can and build in security right from the very start.
And John, the use of the serverless services, the SaaS services on AWS, really helped us with your security organization. EC2 VPC has a different security wrap around it. A lot of the time, you need to secure it, we secure it. But with the SaaS offerings that we're using, it's already done. It's already evergreened as well. So it expedited, didn't it, that security process?
It did. So where do we stand right now? What are our next steps? Well, I hope you found our presentation helpful to see how customers like Reynolds Consumer Products has been able to leverage solutions by DXC running on AWS, like the Spark platform, to not only further their intelligent factory initiatives, but also drive after environmental projects. As for us, well, the metering equipment was installed during our Thanksgiving shutdown, and the Spark environmental services are already set up, ready for data to start flowing through. We have a bit of testing to do, and then once we've done that, we just need to train our users on navigation. The screens are already very easy and very intuitive, so we think that'll go very smoothly. We can't wait to see the insights that we're going to get from having this better visibility to our gas usage and based on which products that we're producing. We also think that there's potential that we might be able to do some scheduling optimization once we understand which ones of those furnaces are more efficient than others. So we think that this will definitely help us to be able to reduce our environmental impact. So we'll be piloting the solution throughout the spring.
Thank you, John. John, Russell, thank you for sharing your insight about the Reynolds project and Spark and industry issues. As you now know, through a set of IoT offerings called Spark, we're working with customers to launch emerging technology to lower their environmental impact. These environmental impact solutions specifically allow these organizations more effectively plan and launch such initiatives and allow these companies to launch them in several weeks versus several months or even several years. Not only lowering their costs, but also helping the environment by doing so, and becoming a company that more consumers recognize as being more environmentally responsible. Thank you for attending today's session.